Today we're going to talk about different credit card readers that can be supported in the different systems. In front of you are a few different card swipe types. We have a few MagTechs in here. You can identify them by the word MagTech on some of the devices. Here's another MagTech that doesn't necessarily have the text MagTech on it, but if you turn it over it actually says MagTech on the bottom, identifying essentially the same product. This is just a simple magnetic stripe reader. We also have in here an ID Tech device, and they typically write their name up here in the upper left-hand corner of the device. And if you look on the bottom, most ID Tech devices start with a model number of IDMB. We also have another product that you may not have heard of, and it doesn't really have any line or text on it. And this is a UIC card swipe device. You'll look on the bottom, it doesn't really have their name directly on there, but once we start looking at this MSR213, if you use a Google search for it, you can actually find that record. So some of the things that we're going to be doing with these swipers is looking at how to decide what type of mode they're in, and also to see how to change those modes. So our next step is going to be, we're just going to concentrate on just the ID Tech card swiper first to determine what its settings are, and then we can go ahead and go after that to the other devices. The other thing that we'll show you is how to identify a device, any one of these types of devices, just by plugging it into the computer and determining what type of equipment it is, and that's part of this video. With the ID Tech plugged into the device, we're going to go ahead and start checking to see what kind of mode we're currently set up in. Our easiest first step with Windows 10 is to go ahead and click the settings screen. So go ahead and click the start menu and then the settings bar. From there we're going to want to see the devices, and in this device list it should show us if it is a HID mode or not otherwise. So in this case it does show it's an HID mode. If you had a question as to is it or is it not, and you're in an older operating system, we do have a way of verifying that through an application that ID Tech provides. It is a configuration tool available to everyone. So if we go ahead and go over to Google and go to idtechproducts.com, we can navigate to their software services section and download that current version. So let us get over there. Go ahead and click on support. Up here in the corner. From support they do ask us which thing do we want. We want to go ahead and we can do either one of these two. We can do the knowledge base product. In this particular case, the product that we're working with, we can select from the product side, and because of the form, this one is a mini mag. So from the mini mag options, they provide us a link for a download. So if we do a software download, one of the four options that you see is a configuration utility. So go ahead and download the configuration utility. Once it completes, it does have a random kind of name to it. Go ahead and click to install it. Actually, it looks like we're going to have to open the zip file. So let's open the zip file and extract the files. So I'm right clicking on the file, and then I will say extract files. Leave it the default name and click next. It'll extract the application. Once done, we'll click over back to the downloads section. And we'll select the folder that we just extracted from. And then we'll find the setup program and run it. It will ask us if we want to run as administrator, and we will say yes. Notice the name is MagSwipe here. We'll go ahead and select next to the install list. We accept their terms, how to use the utility. We can leave the default path. We'll go ahead and leave the default as typical. MagSwipe is going to be the program folder it creates. And we'll go ahead and click next one more time. At this point, I don't think that we need to restart the computer, so I'm going to go ahead and select no for that. And once we're back to the program, we're going to go ahead and click start. We'll scroll down to the option for the MagSwipe. So let us see if we can find that. Let's see, MagSwipe. And there's our MagSwipe option. And we'll go ahead and select the MagSwipe config utility. Within the utility, you first got to identify the equipment, so that's why the blue is highlighted in the upper left corner. So we did plug this into a USB, so we'll go ahead and click the USB option. It already automatically finds the equipment. We'll press continue. You do hear it beep. So now that we've identified that, we can check the current reader settings over here on the buttons. It'll pop up a list. And kind of what we're looking for is to see what kind of settings we have present. In this case, what it's looking at is saying it's an HID format. It will send all of the data for track 2. If you'll notice, it has some other settings that you can configure for the starting sentinel, end sentinel, track 2, track 3, all of those different elements. But essentially what we're looking for is the USB HID option. Now with the Mini-Mag devices, IDTech does allow us to modify these configuration settings by changing the basic configuration reading settings. And let's just see, actually it looks like it's under the advanced reader settings. And right now you see up here at the top it's got an option for IDTech HID format, IDTech USB HID, or MagTech USB HID. So we have each one of those options as a possibility for ourselves. It is fine to leave it on the IDTech USB HID format rather than the keyboard version in the middle. If for some reason you're still having problems with the device, the MagTech USB HID format is a valid option for you to use. To change any of this, you would choose which option you're using, and then you would click down here at the bottom and say send to MSR. And then it will beep at you and tell you that it was complete. So in this case I haven't changed anything, so I will go ahead and press the send to MSR. You heard the beep of the device. You see that the mouse cursor was still pressing OK, and then it told us that it could not open the device. At this point now, when you click back it took you back to the home screen. You do need to select the USB and hit the continue button again. And now with that change being made, you want to go ahead and click over and check the current settings. And what we should see is that it should still say USB HID format, which it does. In this case, this ID Tech device is ready to go. Look at the MagTech equipment to see if we can identify if this is in a keyboard entry mode or if it is in a HID mode. So I've plugged it into the device, into the computer, and to make things simple, we'll go ahead and go back over to the settings of the computer. It actually does say that a USB swipe reader is set up. If we'll come back over to devices, we see that it says a USB swiper. We really don't know if it's a keyboard entry mode or otherwise as yet. One simple way to test that is to go ahead and click on Notepad and then run a test card transaction through the swiper and see if there's keys or characters on the screen. So in this case, because it did pop up and show all kinds of text on the screen, and don't worry, this is a test card number for some EMV certification, you do see a lot of different values that came in related to the random track data that you would see. When you do see this kind of thing, if you wanted to switch this over to HID, obviously our first step is to identify what type of equipment you had. We already identified from the bottom that this is a MagTech device. So to download the configuration tool, we'll go ahead and start our browser and visit the MagTech website. So go over to magtech.com. From here you want to choose up at the top, you've got a support and services section. So from the support page, we want to go ahead and scroll down, and if we can select, let's see here, this is a card reader, and what we're trying to do, this particular device is called, let's see, a Sure Swipe. So we'll go ahead and select that and click Go. They have some options for software, and we'll go ahead and click on software, and as we scroll down they state that there is a demo program, and with the demo program it says it can send commands that will change the device's configuration for both the USB and keyboard emulation units. So if we go ahead and download this product, it shouldn't take too long to download. It's another random number generated value, but once it's completed, we'll go ahead and click the link and open the program. It will require admin rights to change the computer. And as it's starting to prepare to install, we'll go ahead and choose Next on their first option. At this point we don't need the source code, so we'll go ahead and say no, we don't need that. And then the next option is just going to be to install it. If you'll notice the name that they've placed as part of the application installer, this USB MSR demo, that is actually the name that you will be able to use to search for the entry in the start menu to find when we're running the program. So there's still a MagTech start menu item, but it does become a little difficult to find this program after the fact. So let's let this finish installing. Once it's complete, go ahead and press the Finish button, and we'll find this program under the Start menu under MagTech, M-A-G-T-E-X, and then you'll see this MSR demo link. Go ahead and start the program. When it starts up, it's just a little box. The big important part that you're looking for is down here at the bottom of the screen, where it's identifying, did it find a piece of equipment. In this case, it detected the HID mode. It also has identified the hardware or the vendor ID and the product ID number. So the 0801/0001 generally means that this is going to be a MagTech in keyboard entry mode. Not all MagTechs can change its operating mode, but if this is possible to change, and there is a limited number of times that it can be switched back and forth because of the way the flash memory is done, to change it over to HID mode, we go ahead and select in this first message. We're going to send the terminal a message, and we want to change it to HID mode, so we need to type 011000, and we go ahead and press the send message. We leave the auto add length alone, and let's see what happens here. So with the response, it came back with a message, and I don't remember exactly everything, but it essentially says that we received back a approval message, that it received the command. Now we need to restart the device. One way to restart it is to obviously unplug the device. Another way to do it is to actually send a 02 in this message box up here at the top, and we will hear the beep when it comes back. If there was a beep. In this case, there was no beep. The terminal itself had a red light for a minute or two, and now it's back to a green light. If we look on the screen, it actually now identifies itself as an HID mode device, and if we scroll all the way over here, the VID/PID number is a 0801 and a 0002. The 002 now signifies that this is a HID swiper. In this case, the change has been successful. Now, to test it, you can take your same test credit card and swipe it in the app, and this particular app will instantly show you a different way of message. In this case, this program will interpret the information that was received in the HID mode. But if we start a notepad program like we did before, and we swiped it here, we are not going to see any information displayed on the screen. So in this case, that means that the terminal or the device is no longer in keyboard entry mode, and therefore converted correctly into HID mode. There will be times that you will get a piece of equipment that you may not identify what brand or hardware manufacturer is utilizing this particular device. One way, if it has any markings at all, is to try and utilize the model number that is provided here and see if you can identify what an MSR123 is. If you still can't quite find it, if you'll notice even on the Microsoft Devices menu, it says it's an MSR123U card reader. So regardless of what it is, we should be able to use the Google Chrome or Google search browser and type in this MSR213U and see if it can identify what type of equipment it is. It has successfully identified it as a card reader. And here's Uniform Industrial, so this might even be the product manufacturer. So here's another one that says UIC, and that is just identifying the manufacturer. So this is a UIC MSR213U piece of equipment. Brinkman Financial does support this particular card swiper in HID mode, and currently we do not know what the command is to change it from HID to keyboard or back to from keyboard to HID mode. So in that case, we would assume that this one's already present as an HID device. Again, one quick way to test that is to start a notepad window and swipe the card and see if it generates messages on the screen. So we'll go ahead and swipe the card. If you'll note, nothing has shown up. If you wanted to test it through the Brinkman Financial interface, if you'll visit our virtual terminal, we will see if it can be identified and can process successfully. Let me go ahead and log in. And by default, the system does go directly to the virtual terminal page. We don't need the information saved. So we're giving the bridge service a second to identify equipment. The card swipe has been identified. With Windows 8 and Windows 10, before the equipment is active, or yes, when it's active it turns the light green until it turns into power save mode. But with a green swipe or a green light with that, we can now swipe the card and we should actually see that the credit card number is now displayed in the screen. If you see that, then that means that this has been successfully running as an HID device and can now process transactions without any problems. So what is the difference between an HID mode and a keyboard entry mode? You saw some of our tests where we started a notepad and then did a quick attempt to card swipe the transaction and nothing happens. In that case, the card swiper is set up as an HID card swiper mode. HID stands for Human Interface Device, which obviously when we're talking about the computer to us, it is a human interface device. One of the key differences with a human interface device is that an application has to talk to the computer differently than in a keyboard. Typically, a keyboard is a human interface device, but it is typically handled by the operating system differently. So in this case, you could type all kinds of characters on the screen and everything would be happy. In our applications, we're using HIDs to reduce having to have the user have the field in a special place and then having to swipe the card. By allowing us to do HID, it makes it more seamless to the customer. For a keyboard, there is the possibility that a keyboard logger or a key logger has been installed maliciously onto the computer and credit card numbers could be captured that way. So BFC prefers to use the HID mode, and that is why it's been configured that way. If you have a card swiper already installed on the computer and you're not sure exactly what manufacturer it is and it has no labels on it, no model number, one other way we can do to find out if the equipment is or what the equipment is if we click on the device through the device manager. So we will have to come over here to the start menu, and from the start menu, if you'll right click and we'll choose the device manager option here. So let me go ahead and zoom in just a little so you can see the device manager option. We'll go ahead and choose device manager. So once device manager comes up, we do need to zoom into either a keyboard. For keyboard card swipers, they'll show up under the keyboard. Right now you see just the one device. If it's an HID device, it'll show up under the human interface devices. Now there may be multiple devices here, and this may be tedious by having to come over here and bring up the properties of the device to identify each component. And there may be multiple, but once the properties pop up, choose details, change the drop down to hardware IDs, and now what you're looking at is this VID number is what they call a vendor ID. With a vendor ID and a PID, you can typically find out exactly what type of equipment you have. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and copy that content, and we're going to start our browser again, and this time search for that vendor ID. So let's go ahead and see what we get. So I've copied it and I'm going to go ahead and paste it in the search bar. So I'm going to paste it, but really what I don't need is the USB part in the front of it. So we'll go ahead and delete that part of the search text. So delete that. And if I just want to know the manufacturer at the moment, we're just going to take just the VID part of it. So if we go ahead and choose that and we hit search, we see that all of a sudden we have some driver options. We have different people trying to identify what it is. Now I would recommend not downloading just random drivers from different places, but sometimes we can identify who the vendor is. So let me go back up there and choose the word vendor at the end of that. After some additional searching through some other websites on this on Google, I was not able to identify that particular vendor ID of 6352, but luckily we do know the model number of the equipment on the bottom of the unit. So in that case, we do know that this was a UIC piece of equipment. But that is one way to identify who the manufacturer is if the item is listed out there in the general public. With that, this concludes our video series on the different card swipe types and how to change the different modes.